Welcome back to Tools in the Shed, Greatest Hits Holiday Compilation Series. This time around, it's cars in the garage, vehicles that we've been steering and enjoyed, maybe some that we didn't.
I think what we'll move on to now is our garage.
Sure.
And some of the vehicles that we've been experiencing, assessing, all of that stuff during the week. Now, I would like to kick off with you, Mal.
Yeah.
And I think we alluded to it earlier. It's a Nissan product, but it's not the Warrior. It's the Warrior.
So just before Christmas, I went to the final media launch for the N-Trek Warrior, which is
and we're talking Navara. Navara N-Trek Warrior.
Navara N-Trek Warrior,
yep.
So it's kind of Nissan's approach to... Nissan's... application of the Raptor formula.
Okay.
But what they've done is they've wound up with a car that's cheaper than the Wild Track. So,
wow.
Anyway, it's exciting. They've done a lot to it. It's
Cool.
got bigger tyres. It's got taller suspension. And Australian developed bits too. It's got the visual package. No extra herbs under the bonnet.
Which is a bit of a theme as well, isn't
Yeah,
it?
with the Raptor.
That it's largely around all the other stuff, not just
Yep.
under the bonnet.
Yep, and look, the 2.3 litre twin turbo already makes 140 kilowatts and 450 newton metres, and it's certainly adequate.
Yeah.
But so I went to the launch just before Christmas, and then I was lucky enough to have the car in Sydney over the Christmas period. So I kind of did everything with that car.
Unreal.
It was good to spend time with it on the road.
I think
more
you did
time
the
on
Fink
road.
Desert race in it, didn't you, as well? Just
I wanted to, but it wasn't held over the Christmas
okay.
period.
Oh, damn. All right, maybe Perry Dakar. Yeah.
Which also
isn't held over the Christmas
Well,
period. Oh, I don't know.
But,
the Mal 1000.
I did the Mal
Up
1000.
over the mountains.
Yeah.
And the Mal 1000 included all sorts of jobs with the bushfire threat. It
Oh,
wound
of
up
course.
being
Oh,
my
gosh, yeah.
standby escape vehicle a few times, loaded to the hilt.
Yep.
That tray is no different to a regular Navara,
Yep.
but the tub tray. But the tie-down points in that thing is great. I think it's still a USP among other light commercial utes. What else did I do? We got pictures of all this stuff happening in the background.
Yeah, great.
I'm sure.
Yep.
I carried a 3-seat couch in the tray.
Good on you.
Carried the 3-seat couch
with
in the
the
tray,
Navara.
and then you put it
Balance
in
the
the tray
tray.
and then took it somewhere.
Plus a couple of armchairs.
Plus a
All
couple
at
of
once.
armchairs.
Yep.
Right.
All at once.
So it was Mal's mobile lounge over Christmas.
Lounge room.
Lounge room.
Anyway, did a great job.
And how was it on road? The focus of that car is off road, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it, rather than on?
Yeah, but they've paid a lot of attention to the initial bump compliance.
Yeah.
Which is how we spend our time on the road. It is a lot better than a regular Navara.
Is it? Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Particularly one on the bigger 18-inch wheels.
Yeah.
So the Warrior's on 17-inch wheels with massive sidewalls on those all-terrain tyres. It's not quite up to the Ranger kind of Wild Track level of compliance and comfort,
Yep.
but it is a lot better.
Yeah, okay.
But the big thing for me
Yep.
is I really, really look forward to other ute brands applying this formula with local bits to make big improvements to the car with minimal change.
That's just
Watch
going to
this
say,
space.
Mel, I mean, at the risk of stating the bleeding obvious, it is clearer than ever that this is where people are putting their dollars that may have previously opted for a V8 Commodore or, a performance Falcon or those kinds of things. The flexibility of these vehicles family-wise, and then you modify it and customise it in a different way.
Yep.
It's the new kind of performance vehicle.
It's also sort of half a return to Australian manufacturing, weirdly.
Oh, too right.
Because we are producing these things. I should point out, too, the Ranger V8 we were talking about earlier, too, does look like it'll be a local engineering job as well, as opposed to
an X-Factory.
And possibly our seat of the pants vibe is telling us by the same organisation that's doing the Warrior.
Yeah,
Possibly through
Possibly.
Premcar. That's a
Possibly.
big fat possibly,
Yes.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Unconfirmed at this point, but
But
possible.
Premcar are the people who used to make GT Falcons
Sure.
and F6 Typhoons and such.
Yes,
they are
absolutely.
FPV
So
by
they've got
another
those
name.
skills. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, go them. It's great to see.
All right, and just a round ballpark dollar figure?
I think it's 56 on the road
Okay.
for the manual and about 60 odd on the road for the auto.
Yep.
Which is really good value for a ute.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right. We will move on.
Okay.
Chesto.
Yes.
To your good self, different kind of vehicle
Very
altogether.
different type of vehicle. And because I am a man of the people, I chose the cheapest AMG to spend my time in, which was nice.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I was in the AMG A35. It's listed 67,200, which is, by AMG terms, cheap.
Sure.
You know,
That's their entry point.
By my
Yeah.
terms, very expensive.
Yep.
And I don't think we're sure where the new A45 will come in yet, do we? But
No,
yeah,
but
but
there's been
it's-
nothing official.
it's
put it that way.
definitely
significantly-
$10,000 cheaper than where the old A45 started.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, and to be honest with you,
But a hefty jump over a Golf R.
yes, but you're paying for premium, aren't you, my friend? That's the magic.
You're paying for premium.
And look, to be honest with you, the thing I love about a lot of hot hatches, but this one in particular, is the fact that really it is all the car that I really need. I wouldn't need to go to an A45. I wouldn't need to go bigger. It's got a 2-litre turbocharged engine, 225 kilowatts and 400 newton meters. Doesn't sound like a staggering amount of power. It is in real terms in that car. It's plenty.
Sure.
7-speed dual clutch auto,
What's the 0 to 100 claim?
4.7 seconds.
Wow, and the original
It's a sub
A45.
5-second car.
Yeah.
The original A45 was 4.6
Yeah.
when it hit.
So it
So,
is,
wow.
and then like most German cars, in fact, most cars, it's limited to a top speed of 250. Not that I got anywhere near that officer, but
On your driveway.
on my driveway.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, for me, it ticks a lot of boxes. It is it again has all the power that I need. It's actually, by AMG standards or by performance car standards, relatively comfortable when you want it to be. There are a couple of gripes. It scrapes terribly under the nose over even the slightest of divots, which always just makes my skin crawl when you hear that noise.
Yep.
And
It's
the other thing,
nerve-wracking to drive around too.
yeah, I mean,
You're always sort of...
this will mean
Look out.
this will mean nothing to most of our listeners, but one of the places where we pick the cars up from in Sydney just happens to be at the end of a driveway that's like that. So that's always the most nerve-wracking moment.
Okay.
And then the other little sort of gripe, which I mentioned earlier, I know this is a tiny thing, but it annoys me. Car companies have rushed to this USB-C format, which is the tiny little USB plugs in cars. Now,
Which is ambi upside-downiness.
is it? Well,
whatever
there you
that
go.
term
Well, I can
is.
tell you that I've never actually used one. I've just tried to jam the big plug in there and then got frustrated.
As an Android user, it's a godsend.
Really?
But you need a double-ended USB-C.
But what's the difference?
take
Why is it a
advantage of it.
godsend for an Android user? Why is that different to a...
Well, that's my standard power port. And you can plug
oh, I see what
it
you're
in
saying.
upside down, whatever direction.
Yeah, okay, right.
That's great.
Well, as an iPhone user, like most of the sensible people on the planet.
Most.
It's,
That's a strong word.
If you haven't met him before, that's Smug Mal.
So that was
We've
a
never
slight,
met Smug James.
a slight annoyance. But apart from that, look, it is a good bit of kit. It
Yep.
is. It maybe doesn't have the kind of emotion of the old A45 with its gunshot exhaust, and it's got launch control, but the A45's launch control is
that's
really
about all it
That's
lacks,
the new
though,
45 is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
which is a
but in
powerhouse.
terms of an entry level AMG product that's going to put a smile on your face
It's
when you want it to,
interesting,
does the
because
job.
there's part of me that thinks that's all the car need in terms of a hot hatch. Fiesta ST is
Yeah.
kind of a bit of that. A couple of ladders,
That's
rungs
right.
down the ladder. You know, it's so much fun in the city.
And mate, at the risk of harping on about it, this Yaris GR you'll find is
Okay.
is plenty
That's
of
a good
car for
point.
plenty
Let's
of
not
people
forget
too.
the i30N
yeah.
Yeah, good as well.
Yep.
Absolutely.
for $27,000 less.
Yeah. But
Round
again,
and
you're
drink.
paying for the you're paying for the AMG-ness of the thing.
Of course.
but still,
of course.
it's
And Australians love AMG
I
products.
think from memory we're still the
Evidently.
biggest per capita market of, or maybe
No,
we're
no,
second
not per
now.
capita. It's in terms of the model mix.
Model mix,
So in
okay.
terms of the total number of Mercs sold in this market, we have the greatest
Oh,
proportion
the highest
of
percentage of
AMGs
that are AMG. Okay,
that make
gotcha.
up that number.
which is a common proportion among other manufacturers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have performance.
BMW
ammunition.
M.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
We love fast cars.
Yeah.
And apparently we have a lot of money.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Apparently.
speaking of which, I'll chip in with the car that I've been driving, which is a BMW X6 M50i. And it's a twin turbo 4.4 litre V8.
Speaking of plenty of money.
390 kilowatts, 750 newton meters.
Jeez.
And all I will say is that it's fast. It's really fast, properly fast.
Yeah.
It's also fast. It's quick. It's rapid. You know, it's all those things.
Is it fast?
Is it
Yeah,
fast?
It's fast.
But is it an enjoyable fast or a vaguely terrifying
It
fast?
feels like a kind of obscene fast.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to use that. And that's the way it goes with a lot of cars.
I reckon that throttle response is second only to electric cars.
You reckon?
It's so good.
I think it's you get the full leather.
Off
It's
the
got
mark.
4-zone climate control, laser headlights, all these kind of U-Butte latest and greatest bits. Just at an emotional level, it looks aggressive.
Yeah.
It really says, I'm after you. The back of it looks like a piece of origami, and the front just looks like a kabuki warrior, kind of burning a laser.
And it puts on a decent light show as you approach it too.
Yeah,
From the
of
mirrors
course.
right down the sides of the cars.
So
the headlights sort of wake up.
any of these fastback SUVs, it's all about the optics. Yeah, it's about how it looks. I think you've got to be ready for that in terms of its personality to be your device of choice for your family or whatever it is, because it has a big personality as well.
I reckon it rides quite nicely for a performance-themed
Yeah,
X6.
it's on big rims. I can't remember exactly what, but it's
So
on big
quite
wheels
soft.
too.
Do you mean it's a bit exhausting, like to use it as your daily? Is that what you mean? It's just
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, over the week I drove it, I was like, I think I've done my time here.
Yeah.
now. I think so.
okay, right.
It's got so much performance that it's like holding the reins on
Yeah,
a horse.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
trying to keep it down and calm all the time.
And that rearward visibility is always a surprise, I think. You're in a big SUV, you look back and you've got a letterbox hole.
Yeah, you can't see much.
And the joys of double demerits too at the moment.
Joyous.
I give you just a quick side topic. I have a long-termer that I'm running at the moment, the Hyundai Tucson Active X, and it's got a cruise control function that one of those old school ones I haven't used in some time, which is very good at maintaining its speed up hills, but then just completely
just
gives up on the
rolls
way
down the hill. Yeah.
So I'm sitting on the freeway thinking, yep, locked into 110, no problem at all. Look down, I'm suddenly going 125 and double demerits. It's heartbreaking.
That's nasty.
That shows its age, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's fundamental age.
All right.
All right, now we're going to move to our own garage, and sadly, no 911s in there during this week. But Mel, I'm going to start off with you, and this is a car that Chesto nominated as his drive or car in the garage just a little while ago. We want to get your take on it this time, but
Yeah, sure. So it was my turn to drive the Kodiaq RS, the Skoda Kodiaq RS, which I understand Chesto discussed at length in episode 128, which is 2 weeks ago.
There you go. Yep.
And I found it, looking, the notion of a performance SUV still sort of sounds like a bit of an oxymoron to me. Mm-hmm. But I think the application of the Skoda RS formula bodes really well for the Kodiaq, which is a 7-seater, but it's not a very big SUV. It's still only, like an elongated Mazda CX-5. It's still quite narrow, it's still quite low, and therefore it's still quite manoeuvrable. And the Skoda RS formula isn't about massive performance. It's about a bit quicker and a bit more lively and a bit exciting. And I think it works really well. It's given this car that's really cleverly designed. We've always loved the Kodiaq's near infinite family-focused details, from the the little things that pop out from the doors to stop you stuffing
very
the paint.
thoughtful. Yeah, very thoughtful.
The classic Skoda rubbish bin in the door. The storage space under the back. The fact that it has 7 seats in such a small car. Plus, also, it's like at RS point, it's got every feature you can think of, really. Yep. Yes, it's not a particularly cheap Skoda in that it lists at just under $66,000. But, the Alcantara on the seats is just full of nice little details that sort of lift it beyond typical family hauler and give you that feeling of, well, I've treated myself here, and it's something pleasant to go into every day.
Very good.
And it's not particularly fast. Chesto, is the 0-100 claimed 7 seconds, I think, from memory?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, that's right.
So it's at least half a second behind, say, Golf GTI.
And actually not that much faster than the Skoda below it. I think it's a second quicker to 100 to the model below it, yeah.
Right, but I think the whole package works quite well. It's a twin turbo diesel, isn't it, Chesto?
It is, mate. Yep.
Turbo So, they've hooked up the power to 176 kilowatts. The idea of a diesel performance car still, but I think they've embraced what made the first Audi SQ5 work so well, and even the SQ7 work so well, but in a much cheaper, smaller package. You know,
Yes.
they've got the accentuated exhaust noise, but that also disguises the fact that it's a diesel under the bonnet.
Yeah.
So I think as a daily family proposition, it's a really nice package, and it's also a unique package for now in the market.
The point I made a couple of weeks ago, Mal, that I think you agree with is that I felt like if they'd pushed that RS envelope too far, they would have ruined it. I think the fact that it is quite understated as a performance car, so much so that you can still easily use it as a daily runabout for the family, which is its core duty, is actually the genius of what they've done there.
Definitely. You know, there's no low-hanging body bits.
No, exactly.
That will, you know, be a pain in the neck to go in and out of driveways and speed humps and all that sort of stuff.
Mate, you've always got to watch those low-hanging body bits. It's they can get you in a lot of trouble.
That's why I don't ride bicycles anymore, Jackson.
Anyway,
mate, the only thing can I just say one last thing on that Kodiaq, on the Skoda, which I think is so clever. Those little pop-out door bits. I remember being on the launch of that car, and I spoke to one of the engineers. I was like, "Oh my god! So how did you make this happen? You know, it's so clever. What sort of amazing engineering has gone into this?" And he just gave me this look and went, "Mate, it's just a spring. You know, when you open it, just springs out. When you close it, it springs back in." I was like, "It's so
not
simple."
the first to think of it.
No,
not the first to think of it either. I think the previous generation Focus had it, but I don't think Australian models ever got it.
Why doesn't everyone have it? It's such an easy, great thing.
You know, the other workaround is that, you know, people stick those stupid rubber things on them with reflectors on them. It makes your car look stupid.
That's right.
Whereas these ones, when the door's shut, it doesn't exist. But when it opens, it's protected. And you don't have to worry about it destroying your car. You don't have to worry about the wall in the garage or the cars parked next to you.
You've installed a set on the EH behind you.
Yeah, definitely. I've just got a couple of springs out of some
happening on your pride and joy.
Yep. I'll demonstrate the next podcast.
Yeah. Good. Now, thank you very much. Now, we'll move on to you, Chesto, and you've been in a different part of the market. Fill us in on your ride from this.
Correct. I'm a man of the people, as you know, so I'm in something far more affordable, the Hyundai Venue Active, which is really interesting because it is basically Hyundai's new take on cheap and cheerful. It's the most affordable model in their range. It replaces the Accent, which I think towards the end of its days you could get for about 15 grand drive away, you know, and they were selling them hand over fist, but they weren't making any money on that car. So the idea was to bring something in at a slightly higher price point that they could actually turn a profit on, even if they sold less of them, which I think is where they'll go to with the Venue. Now,
Mel has his hand up, Chesto. Sorry, he's just hand in the air.
I was just wanted to add that I think Australia's still getting their head around the fact that Hyundai's added the Kona a couple of years ago as their baby SUV, and now we've got the Venue as well. And
it's baby.
But the Kona's already pretty small, but the Venue is actually marginally smaller again than the Kona.
That's right. And it also feels to sit in and to drive like the Kona's little brother, you know, like, so it does, it certainly fills a role there. Now, the Active is the second in the trim level, starts with Go, steps up to Active. It's about 25 grand, 1.6 litre petrol engine, six-speed automatic. And look, it does what it says on the box. It's not the most invigorating drive experience I've ever had, but it is it's comfortable, it's quiet. That little engine is surprisingly perky for a car of that size, although you do have to wring its neck a little bit to get the performance out of it. But perhaps most importantly, it has a nice little 8-inch screen in the middle. Apple CarPlay sets up. It is like the perfect P-Plater car.
And can I add another thought?
You may.
Yes, Mel.
That was not my door shutting in the background.
No, that was my door shutting in the background.
The notion of a SUV replacing a small hatch might sound a bit funny to some people, but I think, Chester, you'll probably agree that, you know, the higher ride height, etc., is great for access, and also you don't have to worry about speed humps or the dividers in car parks.
That's right.
It's just an easier car to live with without actually being bigger. It's a little bit taller, but it's really no bigger.
And I like to think that by now we've all reframed our idea of what an SUV is, you know, as punters out there, because this one is really an SUV in the loosest sense of the term. You're right, Mal, it's a little bit higher. It's got a higher hip entry point. It's a bit easier to load stuff into the back, but it really, there almost needs to be a whole nother term. It's kind of like it's a high riding hatch, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But it does tweak those little elements that makes it just a little bit easier to live with.
But if they called it a high riding hatch, no one would buy it. Like
that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and
exactly.
I mean, you called it, Chesto. It's a great P-plater car. It is the start of the staircase. It's the first tread on the staircase for Hyundai, correct, isn't it? And it's changing people's attitudes in what a first new car might be. And you think about Toyota with the Yaris Cross. You know, they're seeing that SUVs are the way of the future. We need an entry-level car in that same configuration. So it's an important one.
And off topic for a moment, but the Yaris Cross is going to be a stroke of absolute genius, because not only is it an entry-level SUV, but it'll also be an entry-level hybrid. And we've seen the way the market's shifting in Australia.
You bet. Great point.
I've said this before, but I think that car's all sorts of gold for Toyota. I really do.
Great point.
Yeah, Prius C evidently came a bit early in the hybrid world, and also like Jazz hybrid. I think it was actually the cheapest for a while. It was clearly ahead of its time. Yeah, we're now ready for it, I think.
But also just the Prius is it's just a big fat bottle of uncool, isn't it? You know, like nobody, you know, anyway, I won't get too far unless I get some sort of price.
Some people find it cool. Lots of other people don't find it cool. But evidently lots of other people don't want to be seen to be driving a hybrid all the time, but want to be able to say, it's a hybrid.
Yeah, that's
a conversation.
The other thing is, over time, Prius as a nameplate picked up a bit of baggage. You know that you had a certain message to send politically when you were in a Prius, and something like a Yaris or a Corolla has none of that. So it's a different proposition. Now I'll just follow on. Oh, Mal, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask back to the Venue. Sorry, what the back seat report has been thus far from your four-legged companion?
Well, look, as you know, my four-legged, we have a little corgi, of course. If you follow any of my long-term reviews, you'll have met her many times. Her legs are roughly, I'm going to say 4 centimetres each. So no complaints about leg room to date.
She's a low rider.
Yeah, it's a bit of a low rider.
Very good.
Mate, actually, to be honest with you, we have used it, some of its practicality perks to date. You know, we're all in ISO. There's been plenty of trips to Bunnings and Flower Power to try and, you know, get some home projects done. And again, it is surprisingly practical. If you're a bit clever in the way you pack it, and you fold down the seats or you pack up the back seat, you'd be surprised at how many people or how much stuff you can squeeze into a car the size of the Venue. You might be shocked.
Yep. All right. I'll follow on with the car I've been driving this week. Is Jaguar E-Pace. It's the checkered flag edition. P250, so it's all-wheel drive. Bit over nearly $64,000 before you put it on the road. 2-litre turbo, 9-speed auto, and it's not 183 kilowatts, which isn't too shabby. 363 newton meters, developed very low, 1250 RPM is where that'll start to kick in. I had the pluses down as it's photon red, and I don't know if you guys have seen that color. It's the most amazing kind of pulsing orangey red color.
Like a lipstick red?
The number of people that commented on it, if I had $1 for each of them, I'd have a round of drinks. You know, it's been really, really interesting. Great front seats. I noticed also one little quirk is the center storage box between the front seats. You flip the lid like it's armrest, but also a storage box. That space goes in under the cup holders further up in the console. So you've got like this underground layer beneath the cup holders for extra stuff. So it's got quite a lot of space in there.
Sounds like the perfect place to lose things.
Yeah, you could see it that way, or you could see it as an opportunity for extra storage. Really good rear room. Has a huge glass kind of sunroof as part of the spec, and it's nicely finished. Red contrast stitching on some leather and all of that. What I had in the negative column was that it was quick but not really urgent. You know, you wanted probably a little bit more pickup. The brakes felt a little bit unrefined. They tend to grab. You have to really squeeze the pedal to get a refined kind of slowing or stopping. The road feel wasn't exactly where you'd like it to be through the steering either. And most of all, the gear shift paddles on the steering wheel are plastic, and so obviously plastic. They've been, cast or extruded, and there's a big seam down the edge of them. And there's something you really feel if you want to change the gears, and they feel bad. Yeah. So for me, that's a negative, but an interesting car.
Yeah,
that's really interesting because I think didn't the first F-Type have really ordinary paddle shifters, and I
So
think they
much
fixed
that,
haven't
they have. Yeah.
they? So why haven't they applied that logic across the range?
I don't know. It's a pertinent question. Because it is just one of those touch points where you want it to feel good. Because if you're choosing to change the ratios yourself, you're a bit interested in driving or whatever, and just to have that cheap feeling plastic under your fingers is not great.
It's part of that handshake, isn't it? That handshake.
Yep. Your first
integration.
handshake is the steering wheel and everything that goes with it. Yeah.
But for me, I think that look, it's not a huge amount. That's not in the world of cars. It's not a huge amount of money, but for me, it's a sizable amount, 60 grand. I want everything to feel nice. I want it to work, you know.
Absolutely.
And it takes me back to your Skoda, Mal. You know, I just don't think that's a mistake they make. Everything in that car feels like it should feel. You know, like you want it to feel at that price point. So yeah,
and the same applies for a Fabia for under 20.
Yeah.
Or around 20.
So maybe it sounds like we're nitpicking, but that's something you notice every day in a car. You know, you do want those things to be perfect.
Most definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, so we will move from there to our own garage. And Richard,
Yes.
What we've been driving in recent times. And I'll start off with you. You've been in something that does not consume fossil fuels.
Well, not directly. I was in an Audi E-Tron 50 Quattro Sportback.
Sorry, say again. Say again. I didn't catch any of that.
Okay, so E-Tron in Audi speak is electric. Quattro is obviously Audi speak for all-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive, yeah.
50 these days, so you're going to be seeing the badges, or you've seen the badges on the back of Audis change. 50 refers to the output, and in this case, it's the smallest capacity battery for an Audi E-Tron, and Sportback refers to it having like a coupe styling. So what it is it's actually a really large SUV. It's about the same size as the Land Cruiser. It's 4.9 meters long, which is massive.
There's also the Hunchback. There's the Sportback, the Hunchback.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were in the Sportback.
Which is a bit of a Hunchback. It was an urban test. So with our urban tests, I live in the city. It's perfect for us. We live in an apartment. There's a small driveway at the back with off-street parking. You've got to charge it. So it's not a hybrid. It's an actual plug-in electric vehicle. So I was plugging it into we've got a power point in the driveway. I recommend that if you're going to buy an E-Tron, you get a wall unit. Sean Cleary, who's the PR manager at Audi's, just told me that they're actually they're supplying E-Tron owners with wall units for a limited time. So
that's like a retail offer. Buy your E-Tron and get a wall unit.
Absolutely. So I'd absolutely go for that, because I got down to 50% charge and I plugged it onto the power point, and I was told that it was going to be 27 hours to top it up to full again. Yeah. So I left it on for 2 hours and I got 5% out of it, which is
nice.
Your complete range out of the small battery, when I charged it, came up to be 283 kilometers. That was fine for me. Over the week, I only spent 109 kilometers, because I'm, working from home. I'm driving to the preschool, dropping my son off, driving to the supermarket, coming back. I was probably only averaging about 20 Ks max a day. So, and it was perfect for that though. To drive, I thought it was fantastic. I've done urban tests with petrol cars, and I thought they were pretty good, but nothing beats an electric car in the city. It's just so smooth. It's so effortless. And if you've driven an electric car before, you know that instant torque provides shove, which is just amazing. Like I'm currently driving right now parked out the front. I can see it is a and it's got about the same amount of shove as this Audi E-Tron. But the E-Tron is there's no delay. There's a bit of turbo lag in that but there's no lag at all in the E-Tron. So
it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just something you have to experience. Like it's just crazy.
It's out of
maximum torque at step off. Yeah,
that's right. You don't have the sound of the engine, but you do have good handling because the batteries are all along the floor of the car. It's a really large, practical car.
Do the batteries roll around much, Richard, being on the floor of the car?
Look, they roll all over the place. Double A's. They're all double A's.
It's really a heap of them.
Bags full of triple A's just rolling around.
Double A's everywhere, all over the place. They get under the accelerator pedal. It's very frustrating.
Got to be careful. And look, just don't lick them.
No, don't.
Whatever you do.
$148,000.
Now you've put an idea in my head.
That's $148,000. It's pricey, but not really for a large Audi. If I was in the market for an Audi Q7 or a Q5, SQ5 or something like that, I would suggest having a look at the e-Tron. It does everything that a regular large Audi does, but of course there's zero emissions. But you plug it into your PowerPoint, the electricity's got to come from somewhere. In Australia, we're not known for our electricity being produced by renewable sources everywhere. So it's not completely green until the electricity that's being generated is from a green source.
Correct.
So
you're only talking about zero tailpipe emissions, really.
That's right. But apart from, I'm sure Australia will get there eventually. But a very, very good, one of my best urban drives ever. And
Good.
if you're worried about the range, you can go the 55, which has like a 400-kilometer range. So,
very good. Very
really
good.
Enjoyed it.
Okay. Super. Thank you, Richard. And Crafty, we'll move on to your good self. You've been in something to match your character and your personality. Tell us all about it.
I rode around in the boot of the e-Tron for the week. Richard had me tethered to
the cargo net. Cargo net.
Of course he did. Yes.
Yeah.
That cargo net's a hard thing to get out of, I tell you. Took me 7 days. No, I was in a Hilux Rugged X, the Ute. It's essentially the aftermarket Ute that you'd want, but you don't have to do any of the searching and the sourcing yourself. A lot of it's already on the vehicle. Had a lot of fun. Did a couple of days of really decent four-wheel driving. In terms of what it has, so it's an SR5 Hilux, but it's got rock sliders down the side. So not just side steps, they're fair dinkum rock sliders. So if you get sort of pegged up on a rock shelf, it's not going to damage the panels because you're riding on the rock sliders. It's got decent bumpers front and rear, like really decent bumpers, not bull bars, but a steel bumper. It's got very decent bash plates, so really solid. So if you do,
they're the plates you remove to actually to bash someone.
Road
that's
rage.
right. Yeah,
road
that's
rage.
right.
Yeah, they're very handy in traffic.
No, they're actually for when you eat.
Of course, they are.
No, they're no, and they're solid. They're very decent because oftentimes those things are seemingly afterthoughts on vehicles and can be easily damaged, and the metal pinches and it can cause problems. And really nice to drive. As I say, all the mechanicals of a standard Hilux SR5. It does have heavier duty coil springs at the front. Just to even it out because it is a tiny bit heavier with the bumpers and the bash plates and that sort of thing on board. It does have a snorkel, so if you decide to pitch it into a water crossing, which we don't recommend because obviously you don't drive through floodwaters, but if you did you'd be that gives you that little bit extra air intake sort of height. And so it really is a vehicle kitted out for hardcore four-wheel driving without the necessity for you to buy the thing and then go to ARB or Ironman 4x4 or one of those mobs and leave it there for a week or a couple of weeks while they fit those things. It is a little bit more expensive.
Is Rugged X dual cab only, I presume, Craft?
Yeah. And auto only. So
and auto only. Okay.
Yeah. And there are a few sort of branding things around. I'm not a big sort of branding, like it's got Rugged X on the bonnet and it looks good. But as I say in my yarn, what do I know about looking good on the middle-aged bloke with a tub gut? So, and a receding hairline. Said goodbye to me long ago.
People pay good money for that, Crafty.
That's right. Yeah. But it drew a couple of appraising looks around town, or maybe that was me. I don't know.
Could be. It's pretty common.
But it's one of those vehicles that you do. People go past and go, "Oh wow, geez, ARB must have really got stuck into that," but they haven't because it's already like that as standard. So.
And you were going to mention there's a bit of a premium to be paid, though, Crafty.
Oh, there is. It is. I'm just trying to check the price as of yesterday. It's about. You'll pay about. Can you just play some music while
I was going to say, Jason.
Girl from it.
Jason.
No, it's 70 grand. 70 grand. Yeah,
right.
70 grand. So it's up there sort of. The Raptor's about 75, 76. The Nissan N-Trek Warrior, is
Warrior.
is that's about 70. That's right.
Yeah.
Is about 70. So it's around that realm. So it's kind of what you expect. It's a whole lot more than a sticker pack. Like people look at these things and go, they're throwing a couple of stickers, a whole lot more than a sticker pack, obviously.
Yep.
It's got some really decent gear on, and gear that you would have to pay anyway above and beyond your SR5.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. Just at a rough estimate, do you think to go and do what's been done to this vehicle in the aftermarket, you'd be worse off financially? It offers an advantage from that point of view,
I reckon. Yeah, I think so, because maybe fitment and those sort of things and sourcing things, and also the time and energy it takes. Some people love that stuff, and I mean, we all do, but there are times where convenience wins out over, indulging your passion to various bull bars. So.
I like the fact that it's all sort of genuine Toyota parts as well. So, when you go to the aftermarket, there's always a risk that it might compromise your warranty, or it might do something to the balance of the car, or, affect you.
Or the way the airbags deploy, or
exactly. And that this has been sort of fitted by Toyota. So,
Well, that's a problem with regards to things not being compatible with safety. That's far less of a problem these days, because these mobs are sophisticated, sort of in terms of fitment to to match your vehicle and within warranty. But definitely, and like I said, these are real solid products. I mean, the rock sliders are fair dinkum, the bash plates are fair dinkum. The coil springs work really well just to settle it all down.
Wow.
And that was without a load. And over, corrugated tracks and that sort of thing.
I've just
really
got an
nice
image of the vehicle you've returned to Toyota, Crafty, with scraped rock rails, bashed bumpers, indents, and just this smoking heap back in the car.
That's right.
I've had cars after Crafty where it smells so strongly of dog.
And yet I don't have any dogs. That's amazing.
I've had to turn around just to make sure there's not one sitting there in the back going like that.
Yes, well, we won't go into how your E-Tron nearly killed your cat, Richard.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, there's a story.
It really, really did almost kill the cat.
And it scratched up my face as it tried to get out of the boot with me. So,
all right, now, look, thank you, Crafty. That is, that's terrific. I'll finish things off with, I had the opportunity, it was late last week, I want to say, to drive the GR Yaris, Toyota GR Yaris. Much anticipated.
Thanks, JC. Right, moving on to the next bit. Yeah,
it's finally arrived, and just to give you the kind of basics, just under $50,000 Australian before you put it on the road. It's a 1.6 litre turbo 3-cylinder engine, 6-speed manual, all-wheel drive. That little 1.6 develops 200 kilowatts, which is about close to 270 horsepower from a 1.6 litre engine. 370 newton meters, which not all that long ago was kind of V8 territory. And it's lower, it's wider. It's a new platform. It's basically the front of the Yaris and the back of the Corolla put together. That's because they've swapped out torsion bars and put in a much wider track and a multi-link setup at the back. It's 1,280 kg, and it has a carbon roof, alloy bonnet, doors, tailgate. It's amazing. It is. I gave it, for the drive section in my written review, I gave it 10 out of 10 because it is just so engaging and involving and responsive. It's such a joy to drive. It's absolutely brilliant. The steering, the all-wheel drive system is seamlessly doing its thing. You've got 3 settings. I think normal is 60-40, front wheel drive focused. And then you go to sport, which is 30-70, and you can really feel that rear wheel kind of bias. And then 50-50 for a track setup. And I just loved it. It's also surprisingly compliant. You get that dynamic response, but I think it's the hallmark of a really well-tuned suspension when you don't pay a penalty in terms of a really harsh ride. The steering is so communicative and direct, and yet you don't get any harsh feedback through that either. The clutch, the gear shift, the relationship of the pedals, you kind of old school heel and towing down into corners. The brakes are really professional grade, I absolutely love this thing. And early on, for the first batch, Toyota reduced the price dramatically. I think it was just under 40 grand for drive away. And they all went within a week. And then they got another 100 and tipped it up a bit. They all went with a few weeks. Now the next batch that will come next year, it's going to be full price. But even at that money, it's such a great car to drive.
Do you think, JC, that Toyota's surprised at how popular this is?
I don't know. The genesis of the car is that they've gone full on factory back into the World Rally Championship.
Yeah.
And they've had success there. Their first year back, I think they won the manufacturers, and last year they won the drivers, and they're leading this year. Yeah. So it's all about that, and they've got to homologate it. So they've made this car, and it's just brilliant. So they might be surprised or not. I really don't know, but it feels like a roadified competition car, but it's been done very well.
Oh no, I saw your video, and you begin with the price, and I instantly thought, oh my God, $50,000 for a Yaris. But then knowing your background in, driving on tracks and your experience with sports cars and the way you took us through it, I was like, okay, this is actually turning out to be worth pretty much every bloody cent. The sound that you left out the sound as well. Like in the video, you sort of downshift and you hear it go, and it was just for a 3-cylinder engine. It sounds so grunty.
There's a couple of people. One person made a comment on the video that there is some audio assistance inside the cabin. Yeah. So they pump it up a bit. I got to say, I'm as easily fooled as the next person. But when I was driving, I did hear a lot of genuine engine noise and the tailpipe. I'm sure there's some enhancement that's clear, but it sounds great too. You're right. It really does sound great as well.
Watching it come out of those corners, and you were talking about the all-wheel drive, as it comes around the corners, you can see the back hunker down, and then there's another sort of hairpin corner. It just looks really good on the road.
Well, you're feeling like a hero because actually the car's like a swan. It's all serene on the top, but these things are madly happening under the surface.
Yeah.
To shuffle the torque, it can theoretically put 100% of torque drive to either axle.
Yeah.
But it is always adjusting. And you just sort of somehow sense it doing that rather than consciously feel it. You just know that it's got things under control. It's so well buttoned down. It's such a great car.
Toyota are good when they want to be, aren't they? They can make something like a Camry, which is the world's most sensible car, or arguably world's most boring car, and then they come out with something like an 86 and the GR Yaris.
Yeah.
Like,
the rules, I'm led to believe that the rules for homologation for 2021 mean that the road car that the competition car is homologated from, there has to be a much closer relationship. So that's why they've created this car in the first place and packed in a lot of this tech.
Excellent.
Because it's actually going to find its way into competition. The seats are great. I could rave on forever. I really rate this car. It's so terrific.
0 to 100, what's it?
Well, that's interesting because Toyota claims 5.2, which is pretty rapid.
Hell yeah, that's Mustang. That's GT Mustang territory.
So Neil Bates, who's 4-time Australian rally champion, long-term Toyota collaborator, he had some data from a customer, bog standard car, who'd got in nice and early and had their car and had been to the Heathcote drag strip in Victoria, which is not one of your very highly, traction compounded. It's more your outback kind of drag strip. And they got a 4.7 straight off the showroom. And driving it does feel that quick. It really goes like a cut cat. Terrific.
I just love the fact, JC, that car companies are still making cars that drivers love.
Yeah.
And the danger is, and we've all been in one, you feel so far removed from the experience that it may as well be, I don't know, virtual reality. Yep. So, it doesn't feel like you're part of the whole drive experience. I like the fact that, car companies like Toyota are still doing cars that really,
it's really physical.
You in it. Yeah.
The gear shift is so nice and the clutch is beautifully weighted and it's like a a short stroke brake pedal and it sits just right with the accelerator. But you go, this is made for people who enjoy driving.
Yeah, I felt that way about the 86 as well.
Yeah, but you think about the evolution of some, for example, BMW M cars. You know, the original M3 was a bit like this one. You know, it was very physical, very involving. If you jump into an M5 now, it's quite a remote experience. It's also big and heavy, and it's meant for kind of blasting down the Autobahn as opposed to carving your favorite B road. It's changed dramatically over time, but Toyota's reeled all that back in and created this one.
Yeah, I find that often with a lot of really high-end prestigious cars, you're so far removed, and there's so much technology between your hands and your feet in the road that sometimes I think a bit of simplicity offers a much better driving experience.
It's true. I mean, it's harder to make a very simple car because you have imperatives around safety, particularly, and the cars crash worthiness, and you have to put a whole bunch of stuff into a modern car.
So does it have all the, what's the ANCAP rating for it?
It won't be. It's a small volume car. It won't be ANCAP assessed, but it does have AEB. It has a lot of more recent tech that you'd expect. It's got 6 airbags. It's not shy in terms of its safety kit either, but they've got it to 1,280 kegs. So it's not a super lightweight, but it's sure they've shaved weight off wherever they can.
And fuel economy, is it through the roof?
Can't recall on that just at the minute. But no, it's not extreme. And of course, it's always going to depend on how you drive the car. I would have consumed a bit of dinosaur juice the other day because if you're really enjoying the car, that's the price you pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there it is.
JC, sorry, is that the first 10 out of 10 you've ever given? Like, did you officially give it 10 out? Yeah.
The overall car scored, I think, an 8.3 because things like practicality, even in its category, it's got a very small boot and you can flop the seats down and fit a lot of stuff in, but you know what I mean. So I don't know. I may have, but I couldn't really fault it. The only problem I had is the rear view mirror inside the car is quite large and the windscreen is quite short. So when you're lining up a apex in left-handers, you're kind of going, oh, I want to see the road ahead. That's the only quibble I could find really in the driving of the car.
Okay.
I love this.
You're really kind of splitting hairs when you're doing that.
It's actually, the Toyota Yaris is only 0.3 of a second slower to 100 Ks than the 718 Spider that I tested 2 weeks ago.
There you go.
And there's about $200,000 in price difference there as well.
So, you know, with apologies for the gushing rant, but having driven it, I love it. I love it. It's terrific.
I didn't get that impression, mate. That wasn't obvious. I mean, choose your words next time.
I will. Okay, I'll try and pump it up a bit, you know, and get a bit more enthusiasm.
And gush about something that's under $500,000. You know,
like when you just been out of a Rolls Royce as well.
Extraordinary.
Did that get a 10 out of 10 for driving?
No, it got a 10 out of 10 for value.
Get out! What?
I did. $628,000 car, and I gave it 10 out of 10 for value. You got to read the story.
Nothing's worth $600,000.
I've justified it 6 ways to Sunday. Have a read.
Jeez. All right.
JC's the only bloke I know who proceeds everything he says with tally-ho and a bing bang bosh. Let's go.
Old bean.
Chocks away. Okay, ready for the off. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember, we'll be back in the shed from January the 15th, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.